Holy interrupter, you constantly call us out of our predictable, automatic responses and into your vibrant, ever-changing life. Give us eyes to see as you see, ears to hear your call, and hearts to respond as you need us to. Amen. Please be seated. So when I first started preaching using an iPad, I would have to remember to put it in airplane mode before the service, or I would get alerts and messages all throughout church. I've actually had people text me during the sermon. But technology has now caught up, so now I have a focus mode called Church that silences all incoming alerts during this time. So we're in it's a weird loop, right? We create technologies designed to constantly interrupt us, and then we build other technologies to shut down all of the interruptions, which works fine until the interrupting technologies evolve again, and then it starts all over again. We live with a lot of interruptions in our lives, and mostly we respond more or less automatically with what? Irritation, frustration, maybe resignation. Did you notice all of the interruptions in today's gospel? It starts with Matthew, doesn't it? He's there, he's just doing his job, which by the way is a really, really terrible job. It requires, being a tax collector in the first century requires a level of extortion and corruption that would make all but the most inveterate mobster blush. But I actually like to imagine that Matthew is really good at it. I mean, not the extortion part of it, but the accounting and the bookkeeping part of it, right? The financial accountability part, which is vital and important in any community, including churches. But okay, that's a side note. So anyway, here's Matthew. He's doing his job, and Jesus interrupts. And Matthew's life is never the same. Just imagine if he had noise-canceling headphones on at the time, right? Then there's this dinner with these unsavory characters, which the Pharisees interrupt. Why is he doing this? And Jesus overhears and interrupts them. Why don't you go and learn your own scriptures and stop bothering us? I'm paraphrasing now, obviously. And then there's another interruption, right? While he was saying these things, a leader of the synagogue shows up and begs him, "Come and heal my daughter." And like Matthew, Jesus just gets up and goes. But on the way, here comes another interruption. This long-suffering woman interrupts him, and Jesus' response is to see her, call her daughter, and say, "Be brave, your trust has cured you." And then he carries on to the leader's house, where he interrupts the mourners and tells them to go away, and I guess you could even say that he interrupts the girl's sleep. There's a lot going on in this very short gospel reading, right? And any of those small interactions could open up and be a whole sermon on their own. But what struck me this week was all of these interruptions and the different ways that different people respond to them. Jesus is constantly being interrupted, and yet he never responds the way that I am sometimes tempted to do, the way that Dorothy Parker often did, by saying, "What fresh hell is this?" No, Jesus is interrupted and sometimes does the interrupting, but those external interruptions never disrupt him internally. At his core, he remains undisturbed, right? And Matthew is similar. I mean, we really have no idea what went on inside of him when Jesus summoned, but the fact that he just got up and followed, I think suggests that however life-altering this external interruption was, that somehow internally it was welcome. And we get a bit more information about the internal states of the woman and the synagogue leader, right? We know that she has at least 12 years and undoubtedly more of societal shunning, of erasure, of enforced invisibility, and maybe even some learned helplessness. But in spite of all of that, something in her impels her into action. And similarly, the leader of the synagogue, who is a man who possesses all of the things that this woman lacks, privilege, status, entitlement, he doesn't act out of his privilege, but rather he kneels and with humble conviction says, "But only lay your hand on her and she will live." Something in them resonates with something in Jesus. Now, on the other hand, the Pharisees get their knickers in a twist by this unconventional dinner, and the crowd has already decided that mourning is the only appropriate response to this situation. And when Jesus tries to tell them otherwise, they refuse to accept it, mocking and jeering and questioning. In other words, they only see the surface. And really, what they're doing is just projecting whatever it is that they're already convinced is true onto the situation, right? Tax collectors and sinners are inappropriate dinner companions. Girls that sick don't survive. The Pharisees and the crowd see only through their narrowly preconceived ideas. But Jesus and Matthew and the woman and the synagogue leader and his daughter all see through what Cynthia Bourgeau calls the eye of the heart. Not the surface, but what lies beneath, the truth below the surface. Jesus sees Matthew, and Matthew is called. Jesus sees the woman, and she is healed. He sees the leader kneeling before him, and he goes. He sees the girl and guides her by the hand back into wakeful life. He sees each of them with the eye of the heart, and they, in turn, see him. And in that mutual seeing, grace is made manifest. Now, he also sees the Pharisees and the crowd, but they don't see him. Or they see him with the eyes in their head, but not the eyes of their heart. They see, in other words, automatically, and only in their established categories with their fixed boundaries, boundaries that they believe must be maintained, boundaries between us and them, between life and death, between spirit and matter. But the eye of the heart sees through every category and sees beyond every boundary. How do we respond when our carefully laid plans are upset or interrupted? What happens inside of us when something challenges our stubborn, unthinking insistence that we know how the world works and how things should be? Look, there are plenty of interruptions in this world that really are unnecessary. Most of them that come through these things. Most of them are distracting. Many of them are serving someone else's agenda. But sometimes, the interruptions are not just irritations. Sometimes they really are trying to tell us something. Sometimes the call might be coming from inside the house, from inside us, from a deeper source. And so I think we have to ask, can we tell the difference? Can we learn to see the way Jesus and Matthew and the others see, and respond from a place of undisturbed internal stability? See with the eye of the heart, rather than simply being pulled hither and yon by our automatic responses to every external stimuli. Deep speaks to deep, the Quakers say. Matthew responds, and so does the woman, and so does the synagogue leader, because something in them resonates with the same thing in Jesus. Deep speaking to deep. They all experience a movement of what could be called conscious action, whereas the Pharisees and the crowd only exhibit knee-jerk responses. So we can put all of the ad blockers and have all of the focus apps that we want. We can stick in noise-canceling headphones and try our very best to just lock in, but I guarantee you, you will be interrupted in this life. And when you are interrupted, try to take a beat and remember that in this gospel, the interruptions aren't what take Jesus or the others away from God. They are signposts that point the way to God. And the real practice is learning to see the difference. Amen.